All right. This is a really interesting interview. Michiou KaKu has written a book called The Future of Humanity, Terraforming Mars, Interstellar Travel, Immortality, and Our Destiny Beyond Earth. And it sounds like crackpot stuff, but I actually happen to know a lot about this stuff, and everything he says in the book is actually possible. Some of it may fail, some of it may not turn out to happen the way they think it's going to happen, but it is all absolutely possible. Michiou KaKu is a theoretical physicist, futurist, and best-selling author. He's been featured on just about everywhere. He's on CBS and the History Channel, all the different channels in physics. He is a co-founder of string field theory, a theory he says carries on Einstein's quest to create a single grand unified theory of everything. Let's listen to this interview about his new book, The Future of Humanity. First of all, Michiou KaKu, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Glad to be on the show.
A few years ago, I was reading a book on fake science, and it was talking about, various kinds of homeopathic medicine and magnets that control tennis elbow. And the last chapter was on space travel to Mars and how it will never be done. It'll never be accomplished. The difficulties are too great. Your book, The Future of Humanity, takes the exact opposite tack. You think it's coming, it's on the way. Is that right?
That's right. I think we're entering a new golden age of space travel. Just 3 weeks ago, a private individual, Elon Musk, bankrolled a moon rocket that is physically capable of going to the moon on private funds. And the month before, in December, the President of the United States had an executive order. Yes, we're going to the moon, Mars, and beyond. This is not science fiction or fantasy anymore. We're talking about money on the table. From the private sector and the government, we are committed to go into outer space.
Has something changed? Have there been developments in the past? I mean, it's been years since we went back to the moon. It's been decades now. What has changed that's made this possible?
The change is, first of all, economics. You realize that the movie The Martian with Matt Damon costs more than an actual moon rocket sent by the Indian government to Mars. It cost $70 million to go to Mars, and the movie cost over $100 million. So Hollywood itself bankroll a Mars ship. That's how cheap things have come. And of course, Elon Musk, without taxpayers' money, without a dime of taxpayers' money, created the Falcon Heavy rocket, fully capable of putting the Dragon capsule around the moon. And he wants to bankroll a mission to Mars as well. And so prices have dropped. Also, rockets are now reusable. That didn't exist before. That's going to drop down the cost of space travel by a factor of 10. It costs $10,000 a pound to put anything in near Earth orbit. That's your weight in gold. Think of your body made out of gold. That's what it costs to put you in orbit. Now with the Falcon Heavy, we expect prices to drop by a factor of 10, $1,000 a pound to put you in orbit.
Wow. Now, so you basically, in your book, The Future of Humanity, you basically say that this is a good thing that the private sector has gotten involved. You're happy about this?
It's a good thing because I think a combination of private funds and government money is called for. And that's what's energizing this whole thing. Not just Elon Musk of SpaceX, but Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, the man behind Amazon, has created a private spaceport in Texas. He has his own fleet of rockets called Blue Origin, and he wants to set up an Amazon-like transport system between the Earth and the moon. So we're talking not just about one individual who dreams about going to the stars. We're talking about a fleet of Silicon Valley billionaires, including those from Google, who want to mine the asteroid belt. None of that happened back in the 1960s. So it's not deja vu all over again. It's a whole new ballgame.
So, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, by the way, most of his wealth comes from me directly buying his books. But what is it? You just talked about mining asteroid belts. What's in it for businessmen? Is that what it is? Do they expect to find new kinds of ore or old kinds of ore? What are they looking for?
Well, in the short term, it is profit. Let's be blunt about this. They're capitalists. They're not humanitarians. They're not missionaries.
Right.
They hope to mine the asteroid belt for rare earths that are crucial for the computer program. And so with rare earths, they hope to have a way to bankroll space exploration. However, they also have a mission, a vision for Elon Musk is to become a multi-planet species because because life is too precious to place on one planet. After all, the dinosaurs did not have a space program. And that's why the dinosaurs are not here today to talk about it.
I mean, this is, it is funny to hear you talk about this because I can remember when if a politician got up at a debate and said, we need to get off this planet, that was he was just considered a loon. I mean, he would lose votes over that. I think now most of us feel that way. What are the challenges? You're talking about traveling through space for a long time to get to Mars. What are the challenges that they're facing? What are the problems they have to solve?
Well, to go to the moon was like a Sunday picnic. It takes 3 days to go to the moon. You could go to the moon on Monday and come back on Friday. However, Mars is different. Mars is a new home. It takes 2 years to get to Mars and back, 9 months to get there, and then 9 months to get back, and a few months to do scientific experiments. 2 years. And of course, there are dangers like weightlessness, and Mars is very cold as a consequence. I mean, because of the fact that Mars is cold, it means that we have to have spacesuits designed to work in a cold atmosphere. That's why engineers and scientists have debated what would it take? What would it take to terraform Mars that has turned Mars into a Garden of Eden? For example, if you could have satellites, solar satellites, that melt the polar ice caps of Mars, you could have rivers, oceans, and seas on Mars once again. Mars used to have an ocean the size of the United States of America. That's how big that ocean was. We could recreate it by melting the polar ice caps and then by having vegetation, genetically engineered vegetation that can thrive in that atmosphere. You could recreate an agriculture on Mars. Now, remember, that's still many decades away. However, starting next year, it starts. Next year, December 2019, NASA will send the first automatic unmanned probe back to the moon. 2023, astronauts are going to go back to the moon. 2030, it's on to Mars.
Wow, wow. We're talking about your book, Michiou KaKu, The Future of Humanity, Terraforming Mars, Interstellar Travel, Immortality, and Our Destiny Beyond Earth. So I have to ask you about some of the, I'll call them more far out things you talk about this as you get beyond what you're talking about 2030 is not that far away. But then you start talking about some really, really interesting things. One of them is transferring consciousness itself into machines, creating consciousness. You have a theory that you call the space-time theory of consciousness, where you basically think machines can be made conscious like us. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that digital immortality is a real possibility. As far as biologic immortality, of course, we're beginning to find the genes that control the aging process. We are now understanding why we die, something that we did not understand 10, 15 years ago. But also because computer technology is getting so advanced, it may be possible to digitize the soul. Think about it for a moment. All your credit card transactions, all your Instagrams, everything electronic that is known about you today can be codified to create a reasonable facsimile of you. And that's commercially available via Silicon Valley. There are Silicon Valley entrepreneurs offering to digitize what is known about you today. In the future, you'll go to the library and you'll have a nice conversation with Winston Churchill. I wouldn't mind talking to Albert Einstein, a holographic image of Einstein with all his memories and everything known about his theories digitized. In fact, you may one day have a conversation with your great-great-great-great-great-grandkids who want to know who their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was because you've been digitized. Now, then the question is, who is you on the other side of that holographic screen? Well, to paraphrase Bill Clinton, it all depends on how you define you. If you define you as your biological entity, then of course it's a tape recorder you're talking to. But if you define you as all your memories, your personalities, your sensations, all of that combined together, then yeah, you've now digitized the soul. The soul has now been reduced to information.
If you were talking to that digitalized reconstruction of Einstein, could he come up with a new theory, or would he only be able to do what he had already done?
Well, new theories we think are a combination of what you know in the past, that is
Right.
your sum total of knowledge, plus chance, random connections that you make. So in that sense, yeah, a computer would be able to make original contributions, not because they're original, but because they can put two and two together from different points of view and come up with something new. Now, I personally believe that one day we'll take the connectome, that is the complete map of the human brain, and shoot it into outer space on a laser beam so that you'll reach the moon in 1 second, Mars in 20 minutes, and the stars in a few years. I call this laser porting your consciousness throughout the universe at the speed of light without booster rockets, without accidents, without weightlessness, without radiation problems. And believe it or not, I personally believe that this could already exist. This is the most efficient way for aliens to shoot their consciousness across the universe without those stupid flying saucers and stupid UFOs. They do it with laser beams shot at the speed of light. There could be a superhighway right next to the Earth carrying billions of souls as they laser port across the universe, all consistent with the laws of physics, and we are too stupid to know it.
You know, I know that some of the people listening to this are going to think that you're like just making this stuff up, but I have read about this. This is real, not just in your book, The Future of Humanity, but this is really stuff that people are talking about. Now, we have to talk just briefly about the idea of aliens as you bring them up. You know, first of all, what is the state right now of our search for alien life?
Well, it used to be that we had the giggle factor, that we scientists would giggle anytime mentioned flying saucer people and aliens. We don't giggle anymore. We've taken a census of the Milky Way galaxy. We now know there could be billions of Earth-like twins in outer space, perhaps with liquid water oceans, perhaps with microbial life, perhaps even with people of some sort. We no longer laugh at that possibility. A whole branch of science called exobiology is now being created. And then, of course, everyone wants to know, how come they don't land on the White House lawn and advertise their existence? Well, I like to look at it this way. If you're walking in a forest and you meet squirrels and deer, do you try to talk to them? Do you try to engage the deer and the squirrels? Well, for a while, yeah, but eventually you get bored because they don't talk back to you because they have nothing to offer you, no insights, no stories to tell you. In the same way, I think alien civilizations will look at us as squirrels and deers, nice, kind of cute little animals, but not worth messing with because we're simply too primitive.
That's a vaguely insulting, but probably true. I mean, it always does seem silly to me when I watch a movie and the aliens come and they're hostile. It seems to me that if they could reach our planet, they would be so far beyond hostility that they'd have left the entire concept behind. But maybe that's untrue.
Right. And then in the movies, they say, what do they want? They want resources. They want to steal minerals from the earth. But you see, there are a lot of uninhabited planets that have nobody on them that also have riches. So why should they bother with the rest of natives on the planet with people? They could plunder planets without people just as easily. And so I think for the most part, they are going to be peaceful. However, you can't rule out the possibility that they could be warlike. So I think that we should basically keep our presence a mystery. We should not advertise our existence just in case these aliens simply are evil or simply don't care and they just pave us over.
Now, one last question. You know, some of the things that you talk about, and I do hear a lot of people starting to talk about these things, they almost seem like they go beyond humanity itself. So in other words, you have a fairly optimistic view in your book, The Future of Humanity, but at the same time, is it humanity if it's a connectome? Is it humanity if we're broadcasting just ideas across space? Are we going to lose ourselves? When you look into the future, do you see human beings disappearing as human beings?
Well, if you were to take someone from the Middle Ages who was just finished burning witches and dismembering heretics, and you suddenly transport them into our present day era and they read the tabloid newspapers, they would think that all of civilization is going to be doomed to hell, right?
Yeah.
So I think that when we look at the future, we cannot necessarily morally judge future people by our standards in the same way that someone from the Middle Ages cannot judge us today. We're much more tolerant of things. And as I said in my book, I also believe in something called a caveman principle or cavewoman principle. We haven't changed in 100,000 years. Our personalities are the same. But what do we want? We want to look good. We want to have the respect of our peers and people of the opposite sex. And so that's why I think that we're going to retain our humanness. We're not going to have electrodes coming out of our head. We're not going to be brains in a vat of liquid. No, we want to look good to the opposite sex. We want to look good to our peers. I think 100 years from now, we'll look very similar to ourselves today, except we will have robotic and cyber powers comparable to that of maybe a Superman. But we'll still look pretty much the same and act pretty much the same because our personalities haven't changed at all.
Michiou KaKu, author of The Future of Humanity, Terraforming Mars, Interstellar Travel, Immortality, and Our Destiny Beyond Earth. Thank you very much for coming on. Really fascinating book and fascinating interview. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye. That is interesting stuff, and I do take issue with him on one thing. I personally am going to be a brain in a vat. That's my ambition. That's what I always wanted to be, is a brain in a vat, and just let that way my body can run free. You know. All right.